The great crystal dome of the Galactic Council buzzed with 1,000 different voices. Beings from every corner of the galaxy sat in their special sections, each one stranger than the last. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few seemed to be made of pure light. At the top of the dome sat the Vorthok warriors. They were huge creatures, covered in black, shell-like armor that shined like dark mirrors. Their red eyes glowed as they looked down at everyone else. They were the strongest fighters in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Below them floated the variants. These ghost-like beings could disappear and reappear at will. They talked without moving their mouths, sending thoughts directly into other minds. Their whispers filled the air like invisible smoke. In the center sat the Kethmor, half machine, half living creature. They had metal parts growing out of their bodies. Wires and tubes connected them directly to the great computers that ran the council. They knew everything that happened in the galaxy. A mechanical voice suddenly boomed through the dome. Report number 7749 Delta, it announced. We found a new star system. It has a small blue planet called Terra. The creatures living there called themselves humans. A picture appeared in the air above the council. It showed a pretty blue and green world spinning around a yellow sun. Most of the aliens barely looked at it. They had seen thousands of worlds like this before. What can these humans do? The voice continued. Not much. They have no armor on their bodies. They cannot see very far. They die young compared to us. Their technology is very basic. They just learned how to build simple spaceships and a few space stations. Vixmore, the biggest Vorthok warrior, made a disgusted sound. They sound weak and soft. How did such pathetic creatures even make it to space without dying first? Zythera, speaking for all the Zephorians, added her thoughts. I tried to read their minds from far away. They think in very strange ways. Their thoughts are thick and messy, like mud. They have no special mind powers at all. The picture changed to show human cities, farms, and their small spaceships. The humans looked completely ordinary. They had no claws, no fangs, no glowing eyes. They wore simple clothes and seemed to spend most of their time working quietly. What about their armies? Asked the mechanical voice. They have some big bombs, replied the computer system, but they seem afraid to use them. Their soldiers are split into many small groups that do not work together well. They have almost no weapons in space. Very easy to defeat. Put them in Category 7 then, declared the voice. Almost no threat, not worth watching closely. File their information away with all the other boring worlds. Now, let us talk about something important. The Crystal Empire is trying to take over Sector 47. As the council moved on to discuss more interesting matters, the picture of Earth disappeared, deep in the computer files. Humanity's record was buried under thousands of other planets that nobody cared about, very far away from the council meeting. At the edge of the solar system, Captain Kimday stood on the bridge of his exploration ship. He was a quiet man with careful eyes, who never spoke loudly or made big gestures. His crew worked around him with the same calm precision. Start scanning the next star system, he ordered softly. His people had been doing this same job for many months now. Slowly, carefully, they mapped every star, every planet, every asteroid they could find. Bate wrote down everything, even things that seemed useless. Lieutenant Park Min looked up from her computer screen. She was young, but already very good at her job. Captain, did we find anything interesting in this system? Captain Day watched the star charts fill with new information. Each dot of light represented something his people had discovered and recorded. Nothing that looks valuable right now, he said, but we will write it all down anyway. You never know when information might become useful. The ship moved silently through space, its sensors reaching out to touch distant worlds. The crew worked without complaint, adding each new discovery to their growing collection of knowledge. They were not the strongest beings in the galaxy. They were not the smartest or the fastest, but they were very, very patient. Behind them, space stretched out in all directions, full of secrets waiting to be discovered. Other alien races fought wars or built great monuments to show their power. The humans just kept working, learning, and quietly preparing for whatever future might come their way. In the Great Council Dome, the powerful aliens had already forgotten about the small blue world and its ordinary inhabitants. They had no idea that those same ordinary humans were out there right now, watching, learning, and slowly building something that would change everything. The quiet ones were coming, but nobody had noticed them yet. It was a Tuesday when the aliens first came to visit Earth. Officially, Ambassador Lee Jun walked through the clean white hallways of Luna Station. This space station orbited the moon and served as Earth's main meeting place for important visitors from other worlds. Jun carried a tablet computer with notes about the aliens who were coming. He read through the information one more time, trying to memorize every detail. Dr. Choi So-young walked beside him. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms, though. She had never seen a real alien before today. She kept checking her translation machine and the special scanners that would tell them if the aliens were dangerous. "Are you scared?" she asked Jun as they headed toward the docking area. Jun thought about this question carefully. "No, not scared, just very curious," he said. "We have been watching their spaceships for many weeks now. Their technology is much better than ours, but they have been very polite. They asked permission before coming here and followed all our rules perfectly." A beautiful musical sound filled the docking bay as the alien shuttle connected to the station. Through the thick windows, Jun could see three very different creatures stepping out of their ship. The first alien was enormous. It looked like a giant warrior covered in black armor that reflected the station's lights like a dark mirror. This was a Vorthok, one of the galaxy's most feared fighters. The second alien seemed to exist in two places at once. Its body was transparent and shimmery, fading in and out of view. This was a Zephyrian, a being that could travel between different dimensions. The third alien was half-living creature and half-machine. Wires and metal parts grew from its body, and dozens of electronic eyes moved around constantly, recording everything they saw. This was a Kethmori, a species that had merged with technology long ago. Jun took a deep breath and stepped forward. He had practiced the alien language for months, though he still found it difficult to pronounce correctly. "Welcome to Luna Station," Jun said, bowing politely as humans had done for thousands of years. "I am Ambassador Lee Jun. I speak for all the people of Earth." The giant Vorthok warrior looked down at Jun with obvious disappointment. The human was much smaller than expected, wearing simple clothes with no weapons or armor visible. War Commander Thexmore had fought many species across the galaxy, but none as weak-looking as these humans. "We hear your words," Thexmore said, in a voice like distant thunder. "I am War Commander Thexmore of the Vorthok Empire. This ghostly one is Collective Voice, Zythera, who speaks for the Zephyrian worlds. The machine being is Data Synthesizer Kexalon of the Kethmori Federation." Jun nodded respectfully to each alien visitor. "We are honored that such important beings have come to visit us. Please, follow me. We have prepared a comfortable room where we can talk about how our peoples might work together." As they walked through the station's corridors, Lieutenant Colonel Han Sora watched the aliens carefully. She was a military officer whose job was to protect the human delegation. The Vorthok moved like a hunting animal, each step calculated and dangerous. The Zephyrin seemed to flicker between being solid and being like smoke. The Kethmori's many electronic eyes never stopped moving, no doubt recording every detail of the human station. Sora noticed something interesting. Despite their obvious power, the aliens seemed confused by the humans' behavior. Most species they encountered either cowered in fear or immediately started making demands. The humans were doing neither. In the conference room, Jun began asking questions that surprised all three aliens. Could you please help us understand how your galactic laws work? Jun asked politely. We want to make sure we do not accidentally break any rules or offend anyone. Zethara tried to read Chen's mind to understand what he really wanted. Most species desired power, territory, or resources when they first met the galactic community. But this human's thoughts were strange and difficult to understand. Instead of greed or fear, she found genuine curiosity mixed with careful planning. Most new species, Kexalon explained in its mechanical voice, immediately ask what the galaxy can give them. They want to know about weapons, territory, or valuable resources they can claim. We would like to learn first, replied Dr. Choi. It seems wise to understand how things work before we decide how to participate. For the next several hours, the humans asked detailed questions about trade rules, cultural exchange programs, territorial boundaries, and how disputes were resolved peacefully. They took careful notes on everything and asked for clarification when something was unclear. Dexmore grew more frustrated as time passed. Where were the demands for tribute? The challenges to combat? The territorial claims that every warrior species made? Do your people have no fighters? He finally asked. No strength to show. No lands to claim as your own. Jun smiled slightly. We have soldiers, of course. But we have learned that understanding the rules before playing the game usually leads to better results for everyone. As the meeting ended and the aliens prepared to return to their ship, all three felt confused about what they had encountered. These humans were unlike any species they had met before. Weak sheep, Lexmore muttered as they walked back to their shuttle. But Zethara felt less certain. There had been something in the humans' minds that troubled her. A depth of planning and calculation that seemed dangerous in its own quiet way. 15 years had passed since the aliens first visited Earth. During that time, Dr. Kim Minho had been very busy with a secret project that no one else in the galaxy knew about. Minho was a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had written a very long research paper about all the different alien species humans had met. The paper had a boring title that made it sound like homework no one wanted to read. He sent copies to the Galactic Council's library computers, but, as he expected, no alien bothered to look at it. If they had read his paper, they would have been very worried. Minho had spent 10 years carefully studying every alien species humanity encountered. His teams had built small research stations all across the galaxy, disguised as simple science outposts. These stations secretly collected samples of alien blood, recorded how different species behaved, and studied everything from how Vorthok warriors chose their mates to how Zephyrians moved between dimensions. The patterns are really interesting, Minho told his research team during their monthly meeting. The team worked in a hidden laboratory deep inside one of humanity's harmless research stations. Dr. Park Yoon-ji was his top assistant. She specialized in studying how different alien species acted and thought. The Vorthok warriors are easy to predict, she said, looking at her computer screen full of data. They always respond to challenges with violence, but if you respect their strength and work within their command structure, they become surprisingly helpful and cooperative. The Zephyrians are much more complicated, added Dr. Lee Sungmin, who studied alien psychology. Their abilities make them think they understand everyone perfectly. They believe they can always tell what other species are thinking, but human brains seem to confuse their psychic powers, which makes them uncertain and uncomfortable. Minho nodded and activated a large holographic map that showed the entire galaxy. Tiny blue dots marked human settlements scattered across hundreds of star systems. What made this map special was how the dots were positioned. Unlike other species, who expanded by conquering territory or making dramatic claims, humans had simply appeared in strategic locations throughout the galaxy. Look at this pattern, Minho said, pointing to the map. We now have mining stations providing rare materials to Kethmori industrial worlds. We operate communication relays that improve data transmission between distant planets. We run medical facilities in neutral space, treating patients from dozens of species who cannot get proper health care anywhere else. The strategy was working perfectly. While other alien species fought wars or isolated themselves on their home worlds, humans quietly built connections everywhere. They staffed the space stations that made interstellar trade possible. They maintained the communication networks that kept distant worlds in contact with each other. They operated hospitals and research facilities that provided services no other species could match. Captain Lim Hyanwu commanded one of the many human cargo ships that now traveled regularly between alien worlds. His ship carried supplies, medicine, and equipment to dozens of different species. "We are becoming essential," he reported during a secure communication with Earth. Last month, the Zephyrian leaders specifically asked for human mediators to help solve their trade dispute with the Centauri Republic. They trust us more than they trust each other. Ambassador Cho Yunsu had replaced the original human ambassador 5 years earlier. She smiled as she read the latest reports from human colonies. The colony ship Aurora has just established a new research station in the Kepler 442 system, she announced to her staff. That makes 47 human settlements in previously unclaimed space. Her aide, Commander Park Jin-young, asked the important question: did any of the major alien powers object to our expansion? None at all, Cho replied. We followed all the proper procedures, filed the correct paperwork, and we provide valuable services to anyone who wants them. The Galactic Council classified our expansion as routine colonization by a Category 7 species. They still think we are harmless. What the Council failed to understand was that those 47 harmless colonies were positioned at crucial locations throughout the galaxy. They sat along major trade routes, near resource-rich star systems, and at key communication junction points. Each colony was small, peaceful, and seemed unimportant by itself. But together, they formed a network that was beginning to span all of known space. On the research station orbiting Kepler 44-b, Dr. Sao Younghwan continued humanity's patient work of learning and recording information. His team studied local plants and animals, mapped system resources, and kept detailed files on every alien ship that passed through their space. Vorthok battlecruiser Doombringer, requesting fuel and supplies, his communications officer reported. Permission granted, Jungwon replied calmly. Standard prices, full diplomatic courtesy, as the massive alien warship docked with their small, humble station. Its crew probably never realized that the friendly humans providing fuel and food were also quietly documenting the ship's weapons, crew size, and operational capabilities. The Galactic Council continued to view humanity as useful but harmless. They failed to notice that humans were slowly becoming necessary for the galaxy's basic functions to work properly. Far out in deep space, human scout ships continued their methodical exploration, mapping new systems, cataloging resources, and building the infrastructure for whatever challenges might come next. The quiet ones were now everywhere, but somehow, no one seemed to see them coming. The galaxy's first Great War, in 200 years, started because of a fight over rocks in the Vega sector. There was an old abandoned planet, covered with special crystals, that could power the most advanced alien technologies. 3 different alien empires all claimed they owned this world. The Kethmori Federation said they had the right to take everything from the dead planet, because they found it first. The Zephyrian Collective argued that their mind readers had explored the world using psychic powers, so it belonged to them. When the Vorthok Empire heard about the argument, they sent a huge battle fleet to the system and declared that both claims were worthless because might makes right. Within a few months, the fighting had spread like wildfire across dozens of star systems. Alien warships blasted each other in space while planets burned below. Trade routes that had carried goods between worlds for centuries suddenly became battlefields. Communication networks that connected distant civilizations went dark. Supply chains that had worked smoothly for generations broke down completely. On Earth, President Nam Soo-jin called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. The room filled with Earth's top military leaders and government officials. Large holographic displays showed the expanding war zones, streams of refugees fleeing the fighting, and the collapse of infrastructure that had once connected hundreds of worlds. "Give me a status report," President Nam requested, her voice calm, despite the chaos shown on the screens. Admiral Kong Min-soo stepped forward. His face was lined with years of military service, and he looked very serious. "The three alien powers are destroying each other," he said. "Their fleets are fighting massive battles across multiple star systems. But there is something very important that they have not figured out yet." The Admiral gestured to his aide, who changed the display to show a different view of the galaxy. Instead of battle zones, this map highlighted the infrastructure that kept galactic civilization running. It showed communication relays, fuel stations, medical facilities, supply depots, and repair yards scattered throughout space. A shocking pattern became clear. Nearly 60% of these essential facilities had small blue markers next to them, indicating human operation. "They cannot fight this war without us," observed Director Moon Jae-in, who was in charge of managing Earth's colonies. "Our stations provide fuel for their warships. Our communication networks carry their military messages. Our medical facilities treat their wounded soldiers." Intelligence Chief Bae Suzy added more disturbing news. "We are receiving increasingly desperate requests for help from all three warring factions. Each side is begging us to continue providing services while denying them to their enemies." The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone in the room. For decades, the major alien powers had dismissed humanity as a minor service species, useful for running boring support facilities, but harmless and unimportant in galactic politics. Now they were discovering that their entire civilization had become dependent on those same harmless humans. Commander Yu Jae-won, who oversaw humanity's growing network of defensive platforms, presented additional information. "Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting critical supply shortages throughout the war zone. The Vorthok need medical supplies for their wounded warriors. The Zephyrians require quantum processors for their psychic enhancement systems. The Kethmori are desperately short of rare metals needed for ship repairs, and we control the sources for all of those materials," President Nam noted quietly. 3 days later, the call finally came. Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Solar Defense Force received a joint communication from all three warring alien factions. Despite being locked in deadly combat with each other, they had agreed to request an emergency meeting with humanity. The meeting took place on Harmony Station, a human-built diplomatic facility in the Centauri system. The three alien delegations arrived in separate ships, their vessels maintaining careful distances from each other even in supposedly neutral space. War Commander Vexmore looked terrible. His black armor was scarred from recent battles, and his red eyes burned with exhaustion and frustration. Collective voice Zythurus' normally stable, ghostly form flickered with signs of stress and overuse of psychic powers. Dataset Kexalon's multiple sensor arrays moved restlessly, indicating extreme agitation. "We need supplies," Kexamore stated bluntly, his pride clearly damaged by having to ask humans for help. "Our medical facilities are overwhelmed with casualties. Our ships need repair materials. Our colonies require food shipments to prevent starvation. The war must continue," Sathara added, her telepathic voice carrying undertones of desperation. "But we cannot sustain our military operations without the infrastructure that you oversee." Admiral Rodriguez listened patiently as each faction presented their demands and threats. Then she smiled with a calm confidence that somehow made all three alien delegations feel very uneasy. "I think there might be a better solution to your problems," she said quietly. She activated the room's holographic display, showing the galaxy-wide conflict from a perspective none of the aliens had considered before. Human-operated facilities were highlighted in blue, revealing a vast network that had grown quietly over the decades and now spanned the entire inhabited galaxy. "You are fighting over resources and territory," Rodriguez observed calmly. "But the infrastructure that makes those resources accessible belongs to us. The communication networks that coordinate your fleets run through our relay stations. The supply chains that feed your populations depend on our logistics systems." The alien delegates stared at the display in growing horror as they realized the truth. They had been so focused on their war with each other that they had completely failed to notice the quiet species that had slowly become indispensable to their very survival. 6 months had passed since the Great Galactic War ended, and everything had changed. Ambassador Choi Mina stood before the new Galactic Council in its redesigned meeting hall on Harmony Station. The old crystal dome, where powerful alien species had looked down on everyone else, was gone. Instead, there was now a circular room where all species sat at the same level. No one was higher or lower than anyone else. The three alien empires that had once ruled the galaxy now sat quietly among dozens of other species. War Commander Vexmore, his battle scars healed but his pride still wounded, represented the Vorthok Empire. Collective Voice Zytharis spoke for the Zephyrians, but she was much less arrogant than before. Data Synthesizer Kexalon worked for the Kethmori Federation with new programming that focused on cooperation instead of domination. The trade dispute in the Altair system has been solved through peaceful discussion, Mina announced to the assembled delegates. Her voice was calm and professional. The Crystalline Hegemony and the Aquatic Cooperative have agreed to share development of the system's resources. Human mediators will oversee the project to make sure both sides follow the agreement. It had taken many months to create this new system of galactic government, but the results could not be argued with. Trade between worlds was flowing more smoothly than it had in centuries. Conflicts that would have once started wars were now solved through negotiation and compromise. The galaxy's infrastructure, now openly recognized as human-managed, worked better than ever before. Deep in space, Admiral Song Kyung-ho commanded the Sol Defense Fleet from his massive flagship. He monitored the peaceful expansion of human influence throughout the galaxy. What had started as just a few small research stations had grown into a vast network of colonies, trading posts, and diplomatic facilities spanning hundreds of star systems. Status report from the frontier sectors requested his aid, Captain Lim UNESCO. Colony ship New Horizon has established our 93rd settlement in the Andromeda approach vectors. Kyung-ho replied, reading the latest updates on his command screen. The local alien species have requested human mediation services to help them resolve their territorial disputes peacefully. This pattern was repeating itself across the known galaxy. Species that had once viewed humans as unimportant service providers now competed for human attention and cooperation. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth that humanity had understood for a long time. Real power did not always announce itself with weapons and threats. On Earth, President Kim Jong-ho addressed the Global Assembly in a speech that would be remembered for generations. His words were transmitted instantly to human colonies on hundreds of different worlds. "We never set out to conquer the galaxy," he said, speaking to billions of humans scattered across the stars. "We simply chose to make ourselves necessary. While other species fought for dominance through force, we built the foundations of cooperation and mutual dependence." The human strategy had worked exactly as planned. Humanity had not needed to win a single space battle or fire a weapon in anger. They had simply been patient, methodical, and absolutely essential to galactic civilization's basic functions. Dr. Park, now director of Galactic Studies, published her final research report on the transformation of galactic society. Her research teams had spent decades documenting every alien species, every culture, every strength and weakness of galactic civilization. That knowledge had been humanity's greatest weapon. Understanding their neighbors better than those neighbors understood themselves. The old way of governing was based on military strength, she wrote in her report. The strongest species dominated others through fear and violence. But strength without support systems is fragile and easily broken. The new way recognizes that true power comes from being needed, being trusted, and being present everywhere, at once. Back in the Reformed Council chambers, Ambassador Choi concluded her address with words that would define humanity's quiet revolution. The galaxy belongs to all of us now, she said, looking at delegates from hundreds of different worlds. Not because we conquered it through force, but because we learned that the most dangerous competitor is often the one you never notice approaching. We were always here, building the future, while others fought over the past. As the session ended, delegates from across the galaxy filed out of the chamber. They returned to their ships and their home worlds using human-operated transport systems, guided by human-managed navigation networks, and protected by human-mediated peace treaties. The quiet ones had inherited the galaxy not through violence or conquest, but through patience and careful planning. They had won not by being the strongest fighters, but by making themselves impossible to live without. In the vast emptiness of space, human deep scout vessels continued their methodical work of exploration. They mapped new star systems, cataloged new worlds, and built the infrastructure needed for whatever challenges the future might bring. The hunters had finally revealed themselves to their prey, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, with humanity quietly managing it all. From the shadows they had emerged from, peace had come to the galaxy, delivered by the species no one had bothered to watch.